In 1900, a group of sponge divers off the coast of a small Greek island found something that should not have existed. They were diving near the island of Antikythera, a remote, unremarkable rock between Crete and mainland Greece. They had dived these waters hundreds of times, but this time one of them surfaced pale and shaking. He had seen bodies on the ocean floor, not recent bodies, ancient ones, the remains of a Roman shipwreck lying undisturbed for over 2,000 years. And scattered among the bones and bronze statues and amphorae of wine was a lump of corroded metal the size of a shoebox. Nobody paid much attention to it at first. It sat in a museum storeroom for 2 years before a historian named Valerio Stice noticed something extraordinary. It had gears. Let's go back to that museum storeroom. The year is 1902. The corroded lump of metal has been sitting on a shelf, largely ignored, while archaeologists catalog the more spectacular finds: marble statues, bronze figures, glass bowls. But Valerio Stice kept coming back to it, because when he looked closely, very closely, he could see something that made no sense whatsoever. Gear wheels, dozens of them, precisely cut, interlocking, nested inside each other like the mechanism of a clock. The problem was this: the ship that carried it sank around 60 to 70 BC. The gears inside this device are machined to tolerances. That wouldn't be seen again in human history for another 1,400 years. Let me say that again. 1,400 years. The next time humanity built anything of comparable mechanical complexity was in 14th century Europe, when the first mechanical clocks began to appear. But this device predated those clocks by over a millennium. How? How did someone in ancient Greece, with no electricity, no precision machinery, no computer-aided design, how did they build this? That question has haunted researchers for over a century. And the answer, when it finally began to emerge, was more astonishing than anyone expected. For decades, researchers could only guess at the device's purpose. The corrosion was so severe that the internal structure was almost impossible to examine without destroying it. Then, in 2006, an international team of scientists brought in something extraordinary: an 8-ton X-ray machine, capable of seeing inside solid metal. For the first time, they could look at the device's interior without touching it. What they found inside took their breath away. The Antikythera Mechanism wasn't just a clock. It was a complete model of the known universe. It could calculate the position of the sun and moon for any date, past, present, or future. It tracked the cycles of the 5 planets visible to the naked eye. It predicted solar and lunar eclipses with remarkable accuracy. It displayed the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, and it modeled the irregular orbit of the moon, a phenomenon so mathematically complex that it requires a specific type of gear arrangement, called an epicyclic gear train. The ancient Greeks not only knew about the moon's irregular orbit, they built a physical, mechanical model of it. In bronze, 2,000 years ago, Derek de Solla Price, the historian who first began decoding the mechanism in the 1970s, said it with stunning simplicity. Nothing like this should exist, and yet it does. So, who built it? The ship that carried the mechanism was Roman. But the device itself is Greek. The inscriptions on its surface, thousands of tiny characters, some barely half a millimeter tall, are in a Greek dialect from the island of Rhodes, or possibly Corinth. The astronomical data it encodes corresponds to observations made around 100 to 150 BC. The leading candidate for its creator is a man named Hipparchus, the greatest astronomer of the ancient world. Hipparchus was the first person to calculate the irregular orbit of the moon. He created the first star catalog. He discovered the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of the Earth's axis. That takes 26,000 years to complete. He also, apparently, found a way to encode all of this knowledge into a mechanical device small enough to carry on a ship. But here's what really stops me cold. The Antikythera Mechanism is the only one of its kind ever found. Not one similar device has been discovered anywhere in the ancient world. No fragments, no descriptions in surviving texts, no drawings or diagrams. This technology appeared once and then vanished. For 1,400 years, it was as if it had never existed. Where did the knowledge go? Was it lost in the burning of the Library of Alexandria? Was it deliberately suppressed? Or was it simply too advanced, too expensive, too specialized to be passed on? We don't know, and that, more than anything else, is what makes this object so unsettling. I want to hear your theory in the comments. Was it a tragic accident of history, knowledge lost to fire and time? Or was it something more deliberate? An erasure? A decision made by someone, somewhere, to make sure this didn't spread? Tell me what you think. Now, let me be fair. There are serious historians and archaeologists who look at the Antikythera Mechanism and say, remarkable, yes. Impossible, no. The ancient Greeks were extraordinary engineers. They built the Parthenon with a precision that modern architects still admire. Hero of Alexandria designed steam-powered machines, programmable carts, and automatic doors for temples, all in the 1st century A.D. Archimedes, according to historical accounts, built mechanical spheres that modeled the movements of the heavens. The argument goes like this. We tend to underestimate ancient people because we assume that without modern technology, sophistication wasn't possible. But intelligence doesn't require electricity. Curiosity doesn't require a computer, and the ancient Greeks had both, in abundance. From this perspective, the Antikythera Mechanism isn't evidence of a lost civilization or alien intervention. It's evidence of what human beings are capable of when they decide something is worth understanding. That's a compelling argument, and it might be entirely correct, but it doesn't answer the question of why it disappeared. Remarkable technologies don't usually vanish without a trace. They get copied, refined, improved upon. The wheel wasn't invented once and forgotten. Writing wasn't invented once and forgotten. So why was this? Here's what I keep coming back to. The Antikythera Mechanism wasn't found in a temple or a palace or a treasury. It was on a ship, a cargo ship, carrying goods across the Mediterranean. That means it was being transported. Someone ordered it, or owned it, or was delivering it somewhere. It was a commercial object, valuable enough to ship, practical enough to use, which means there must have been a market for it, which means there must have been more than one. We just haven't found them yet. And that opens a door that's very difficult to close. If the ancient world contained devices like this, sophisticated, precise, built on centuries of accumulated astronomical knowledge, then what else did they have that we haven't found? Think about what survives from the ancient world. Stone survives, ceramics survive, gold survives, but wood rots, leather decays, bronze gets melted down and recast. the vast majority of what ancient people created has simply ceased to exist. We are, in a very real sense, archaeologists of a fraction. We see perhaps 1% of what was actually there, and that 1% has already given us the Antikythera Mechanism. What does the other 99% contain? I don't know. Nobody does. But I think that question, that open, uncomfortable, genuinely exciting question, is exactly where history gets interesting. The stone doesn't give up its secrets easily, but it does give them up, one piece at a time. The stone doesn't give up its secrets easily, but it does give them up. If there's a mystery you want us to investigate, drop it in the comments below. Subscribe to the Lithic Code. The next code is already waiting.